But I want to tell you, you're not forgotten. I'm doing this to bring awareness to the world that there are people, there are veterans who are not able to speak for themselves.
What was your pain levels at?
Without the medication,
Yeah.
I'd be dead. And I tried to tell these doctors, and they acted like they didn't believe me. Just don't give up. I felt like giving up, and I'm glad I didn't. Well, even before my first enlistment, I was born here in Kennewick. But in 1957, I was born in 53, but in 57, my dad, he was a member of the reserve unit here in Pasco, the Army Reserve Unit, and we went to Fort Benning, Georgia. My dad went to Warrant Officer School. So from then on, I was technically, I was a brat. I was in the military. So we came back here for a while, and then in 1962, my dad was activated. He went to Warrant Officer School, became a warrant officer, came back here to Pasco, and then in 62, he was activated, and we were sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And then after that, here we go, all over the world. We spent a year at Fort Leonard Wood, and then after that, my dad was sent to Germany. And that was an unusual trip because we went to Germany on a World War II troop ship, USMS Rose. So we went from New York to Bremerhaven, Germany, 7 days in November in the North Atlantic. And then at first my dad was scheduled stationed in Munich, which was nice. Munich, good. But after a year in Munich, he got transferred for some reason to Darmstadt, an industrial area. And that was kind of... And then after that, we came back to Fort Leonard Wood. After 3 years in Germany, we came back to Fort Leonard Wood for another year. And then after that, a year at Fort Leonard Wood, my dad was sent to Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
So he made his first trip to Vietnam in 1967.
Do you remember what his job was in Vietnam? Or?
Yeah, the first time, he went to Vietnam twice. The first time in Vietnam, he was a battalion maintenance officer. So he basically ran the battalion maintenance section. So in '67, he was in Pleiku. And then he came back for a year, and we went to, he was stationed at Homestead Air Force Base in Miami, Florida. He was battalion maintenance officer for all the vehicles that were in southern Florida, the air defense artillery, the missiles that were down there to protect us against the Cubans. And then we spent a year there, and then my dad went back to sent back to Vietnam again. And then the second time in Vietnam, he was a convoy commander. So he escorted vehicles. And there my dad received 2 Bronze Stars with Valor devices. So I know one of the things he did, but for me, as a kid, it meant like my freshman year was in Pleasanton, California. My sophomore year was in Miami, Florida. My junior year was in Tacoma, Washington. And then my senior year, after Dad came back from Vietnam, was in Fort Hood, Texas. And I graduated from high school in Killeen, Texas. And there in Killeen, I made my first contact. I was in junior Army ROTC. And then I spent my first year in college at Central Texas College in Killeen. And I went to senior ROTC. And I was able to live at home and stuff at that time. But then my dad was transferred to Korea, and my mom wanted to go back to Tacoma. And so I tried to get scholarships, and it didn't turn out. So in 1972, I joined the Army myself. And then I went to basic at Fort Ord, California. And then another thing unusual, we never went to AIT. We went to OJT at Fort Lewis. And they formed the 9th Infantry Division, which was the first division that was transferred from Vietnam. And they were the Riverines. So they were their colors were opened up again at Fort Lewis. And that's where I was first stationed at Fort Lewis. And there we did AIT, and all of our NCOs were out of Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were transferred from Vietnam to Fort Lewis. So all of our tank commanders and stuff had combat experience. So that's where we learned to be tankers from these guys. Never went to, at that time, 19 Echoes were at Fort Knox, Kentucky, or that's where home of the Armor School. And then they transferred it to, now it's Fort Benning, Georgia. But at that time it was at Fort, but I'd never been stationed at Fort Knox. So no AIT, OJT. And then I went to Germany, and I was stationed at Kurskons, the Rock, and I spent 3 years there. And Germany's all right, but it's tough duty.
What year was it that you were stationed in Germany?
In Germany, I went to Germany in 1974.
Okay.
So 74, 75, and 76, I was in Germany doing the Cold War thing. And Grafenwehr, Hohenfeld, I did the Cold War, and we don't get credit for the Cold War, but we won the Cold War. We won. It's a war we should be proud of. We dissolved the Soviet Union. You know, everybody talks about Ukraine today. If it wasn't for the Cold War soldiers that broke up the Soviet Union, there would be no Ukraine today. All those Baltic countries, Poland, Lithuania, all those countries were freed by dissolving the Soviet Union. So I'm proud that we won that war. And we don't get credit for it. There's no medal. We got a little lousy certificate sent to us. But that's it. But, you know, especially after the fiasco in Vietnam, we were proud to have said, hey, we did something. And I wasn't too happy about it because after 3 years in Germany, I put it in, you know, your wish list, and I wanted to be on the West Coast. Well, where did they stick me? As far away from the West Coast as they could. Fort Stewart, Camp Swampy, Georgia. So I was sent to Fort Georgia, and 16 months, that's it. 16 months, I was on my way back to Germany for another 3-year tour.
Oh my gosh.
But during that time, I got divorced, and I don't know, I just lost my feeling for being in Germany again for another 3 years. And living in the barracks is tough. I don't care what anybody says. Living in the barracks in Germany, and there wasn't a lot done for us, for the single guys in the barracks. We were ignored. And a lot of alcoholism, because that's all the guys had to do was on the weekends drink. For like Christmas, I spent in the barracks by myself. So I wasn't real happy about that. So after 13 months, I finished my enlistment and came home. And I came home. I went to work for the state of Washington, Department of Licensing. I met my wife, my current wife, but I still had that desire to be in the military. So I joined the Washington Army National Guard, the 303rd Armor. And then I was in 303rd Armor for 3 years, off and on. But when I was promoted to a supervisor within the Department of Licensing, I kind of lost touch. I'd gotten out of the National Guard, kind of lost touch with it. But then after 9/11, I felt it was my duty to, as a soldier, to return to my unit, report to my unit, because I felt we were under attack. And when I reported back to my unit, they said, "Oh, your armor unit's been dissolved, but we're going to send you, we need NCOs in this new unit, and we're going to reclassify you into military police." So they opened up the 506 MP detachment, Law and Order, and they're still at Camp Murray. And after 3 years in that unit, we were activated and sent to Camp Victory in Iraq. Unfortunately, early on during training, I was injured in a training exercise in which I was lifting my battle buddy out of a Humvee that had been hit. And he was a big guy, about 6'2", maybe weighed close to 250. And I tried to do my best to get him out of the vehicle as quickly as I can, because you don't want to be sitting around stationary too long. You're going to gather attention. So when I pulled the guy out, I heard it. I heard my back crunch, and it sounded like chalk on a blackboard. And it bothered me, and I went on sick call, and as usual, the Army gives you 2 Tylenol and send you back to duty. So I went back to duty and went on to Iraq, and when I got there, the pain was just too much. And I was calling my wife in the unit, was wondering why I was on the phone all the time. I thought I missed my wife. No, I was calling her to find if she'd get me some over-the-counter pain pills, like Dones or something like that for my back pain. But it just got too much. And then when they finally went in and did x-rays, they said, "Oh, we got to send you back to the States. You got 5 of your discs are crushed." So I got medevac back. I went to a dispensary. They sent me to Kuwait. And in Kuwait, they did the x-rays and stuff. And they said, "Oh, no, we're going to send you back home." So I got medevac from Kuwait to Germany. It was Spangdahlem. And then we went to back to where's the place in Washington, D.C.? Walter Reed, right? And then Walter Reed, I went to Madigan, and I was stationed at Madigan for 8 months. And then I asked the Army, what are you going to do about my back? Well, they gave me some pills and stuff, and they said, "Well, we're going to discharge you, and the VA will take care of you." Well, that's took me 5 years of complaining to the VA till I finally got surgery done on my lower back. And they put pins and rods and spacers, and they put 5 cadaver discs in to replace the ones that were crushed. And then 2 years later, they had to do my upper back, and they did another surgery. And that lasted for a while. And then in July of 2022, things went downhill. It got worse. It hurt bad, and it just got really bad. And by October, I was in bed full time. I mean, between July and October, I was in bed more and more. But by mid-October, I was in bed full time. We were full-time RVers for 6 years, but we had to give it up. I just couldn't do it anymore. So we moved back into the house, and we kept going to the VA and complaining to them, but they kept on, they kept saying, not much we can do for you. And so we had to live under the CDC guidelines, because I had to go to a private pain doctor, because the VA will only give you pain medications if you have cancer or you're 6 months end of life hospice. So I had to go see Apex Spine, and at Apex Spine I met Dennis Welch, who was a pain doctor, but he was limited on the amount of pain medications he could give me, because the CDC limited so much medication. But even that was better, but it still wasn't enough to get me out of bed. I was doing better, but I was still in bed all the time. And by December and January, things had gotten so bad that I was thinking about getting ready to end my life. I talked with my wife about it, and we were trying to put things in order, because if it had gone on much longer, I was going to... The pain was just overwhelming. I was 8s and 9s all the time.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's just really rough. And finally, and COVID made it difficult, because you couldn't go actually see a doctor. And finally, in February of this year, I saw my primary care physician through the VA. When I saw him in February, Dr. Cruces said, "You've lost a lot of weight." And prior to this, in July, I weighed 158. By the time I'd seen Dr. Cruces, I was down to 124. And in that month, he said, "We're going to do a follow-up visit in 30 days. So in March of this year, I went back to see him, and I had lost 10 pounds in 1 month. So I was down to 115. And he says, "You're losing too much weight." And I said, "I can't eat, I hurt." I say, "I try to eat, but I hurt too much." So he said, "We got to do something." So he went and he talked with the other nurses and doctors, and he came back and he said, "We're going to have to put you on 6-month end-of-life hospice so you can get the pain medications you need." So I've been on hospice care since May.
June the 1st.
Yeah.
1st.
June 1st, I was on hospice care, and hospice care saved my life. And they put me on a lot of medications. I'm on morphine and fentanyl, both. And it makes it so that I can get up and get around, and it maintains the quality of life. But my concerns are that a lot of us are forgotten. You know, in November, when everybody was talking about Veterans Day and going and getting their free steak or free hamburger or coffee or something, well, all of us that are in pain in bed, we can't go to the Veterans Day ceremonies. We can't march in parades. We're too lost in pain. And what I'm afraid of it is that we're forgotten. And then my wife and I got in contact with a couple organizations. And I want to thank Friends of Disabled Veterans for showing that there are people that care about us. And I want to thank the Wounded Warrior Project. Those are the only two organizations that have made contact with me and have made it so, make me feel that I'm not forgotten. So I want to thank everybody that sent me birthday cards, and I want to thank everybody that made my birthday such a special occasion. I want to thank the car club members, the old car club members, and the Corvette or the Camaro club and the Mustang club, everybody that came out here with their cars. I want to thank the Pasco Police Department and the Pasco Fire Department for helping me. But the main thing is that I got attention, and I'm very thankful for that attention. But I want to make sure that these other guys that maybe don't have a wife, and most of all, one of the things that happened here is that I dedicated my life back to my Savior Jesus Christ. And that has helped me immensely. It has changed my life. So I would encourage anybody that's bedridden not to give up. I just want to make sure that people realize that we're out there, and that I don't want people, 22 veterans a day is too many veterans committing suicide. And I feel a lot of those people that are committing suicide are doing so because the pain has become overwhelming and nobody's doing anything about it. So they feel the only way out is to kill themselves. So the government and CDC need to realize that by cutting these people's pain medication and stuff, you may have cut the pain medications, but you didn't solve their problem, did you? When the CDC in 2016 cut off 60% they bragged about, oh, we cut off 60% of our veterans from opioids. But what they didn't say, what did you do for those 60%? Did you solve their problem? Did you operate on them and cure the problem? No. They didn't. They just sent these people home with nothing. And that's wrong. And all those politicians need to realize what they're doing to these veterans. You know? And they need to hold the VA accountable. They need to hold these governmental organizations accountable. I wrote Patty Murray a couple of years ago, and all she did was I tried to explain my situation, and she said, well, I'll get with the director of the Walla Walla Hospital, and he just gave her the form letter, you know, the CDC told us to cut everybody off. But that's all she did. She didn't do nothing about it. You know, here I was, still laying in bed.
We were paying for your pain meds out of pocket.
Yeah. I had to pay for my pain medication. The VA wouldn't cover it. So we paid for my pain medications for years.
The VA wouldn't cover medication for injuries that were service-related?
Correct.
Opioids. They wouldn't give him his opioids. They cut him off.
Wow.
So we were paying...
So we went to a private pain doctor.
They did pay for his pain doctor.
After a while.
But they wouldn't pay for his pain medication that the pain doctor prescribed.
Huh.
So we were paying for it out of pocket. Almost $1,000 a month.
Almost $1,000 a month? Oh,
correct.
Gosh. If during that time when you didn't have those pain medications, what was the pain like? If you had to describe it, like on a scale of 1 to 10, was it 10 bedridden?
9s and 10s, yeah.
9s and 10s?
In December, in November, December?
No. When the VA wasn't paying for your pain medications, if we hadn't gotten them for you, what was your pain levels at?
Without the medication,
Yeah.
I'd be dead.
You'd be dead?
Dead. DEAD. Or I committed suicide. I knew what 9s and 10s were like. And I'd be sweating so bad, I'd go too hot and cold, hot and cold.
Soak the bed. I would have to get up in the middle of the night and wipe him off and
Like
change the bedding, change him because he was soaked from.
4 to 5 towels. And she'd even use a hairdryer to blow me off. It was terrible. And I tried to tell these doctors, and they acted like they didn't believe me. And then when I told the pain doctors that, he believed it, but he said that this is the most I can do for you. Again, because of the government. Well, they cut everybody off, but they didn't offer a solution to those people. And I understand, you know, the VA caused a lot of these problems because instead of solving the soldiers' problems, which would cost more, instead of giving me the medications, or instead of giving me that operation that I needed from 2008 to 2014, what they did is they gave me, at that time, they gave you lots of opioids. They just give you jars of them. But, so instead of giving me the operation, they just, to mask it, they give you the pills. So in 2016, when the CDC came out and said, cut all these people off, they didn't give everybody operations. You had to keep griping at them to get it. It was tough. And paying it out of pocket. It's just been a terrible ride. The doctors and stuff, you know, in, what was that, August of 2022, yes, the pain doctor I had for a long time, Dr. Kenneth Breeden, he retired. And so there were only 2 pain doctors left in the Tri-Cities. And I see Lynx has gone out of business. They've closed. I saw that. So they're no longer here. So that leaves the Tri-Cities with...
Sorry, this is, it thought I had accidentally left it on, so it stopped. So, but that's all right. We only lost a couple seconds.
Yeah. The 40 MME just didn't do it. I was in bed the entire time, and pain got worse and worse. And then the VA wanted in December, the VA wanted a MRI done of my back. So they wanted Apex Spine to do it. And I went to Apex Spine and I tried to do an MRI, and you have to lay on your back for, what, 45 minutes? I made it about 20, and that was pushing. I had to press the ball. I couldn't take the pain anymore. It was too much. So the technician, the MRI technician said, hey, look, I know you're hurting. We'll try this again. And this time I'll get you a pain medication that you can take so we can get it done. And I took the pain medication and they got the MRI done. And he says, oh, we have a new pain doctor and let's have you talk to him. And I met Dennis Eng at Apex Spine, and he increased me from 40 to 90. But that, because the CDC, that's the most she could do. But it helped, but not enough still. And the MRI showed that what had happened is that the supporting structures that had put in there in 2014 had collapsed, had failed. So all the rods and pins that they put in had failed. So they looked at it, the doctors there looked at it, and they told me, you know, you're not a candidate for surgery. I don't know if he'd make it. So he said the best we could do for you is we'll put a spinal stimulator, neural stimulator in your back. So they did that, and that helped, especially with my legs. So people that have problems with their legs, my problem is that when that failed, your sciatic nerve that helps your legs, now my back is sitting right, the spine is crushed, is sitting right on top of that nerve. And so at any time when I'm walking, my legs just give out. So I use a walker and I use the stimulator device. And I can feel it right now, it's on. And I can feel it.
You're good.
So, and between that and putting me on hospice and getting me the pain medication I need, I'm doing better. And between rededicating my life to Christ and being born again and getting hospice care and getting the neurostimulator put in, I'm doing better. And then psychologically, I haven't had any mental health care for years from the VA. I just couldn't get along with the people that were doing the mental health care. And now they have me seeing some doctor in Boise, Idaho, but all he does is my pain medications. So for mental health care, the only mental health care I'm getting now is from the Friends of Disabled Veterans. And through hospice.
Hospice is the chaplain and the volunteer.
It's through hospice.
Yes, it's hospice.
And they have a couple, they have a chaplain and a chaplain's volunteer. So between the two of them, I'm getting my mental health care, and they've helped me out a lot. So I would say to those people laying in bed, don't lose hope. You contact these people and, look into your family for help. Have them get a hold of these two organizations that I've named. They'll help you get back on your feet again. And I appreciate that they've helped me with my mental health, and the hospice care has helped me with my physical health. But another thing I ask is, why did this happen in the first place? If they would put me on the pain medications that I needed, not what they limit me to, what the government limits me to, but treat me as a patient and give me what I need to have a quality of life. I don't want any more than I'm never going to be out of pain, but I want to be able to have a quality of life where I can get up and get around. And these two organizations have helped me get up and get around. So there's hope. If they would have if the VA just would have, and I don't know how many other people they're doing this to. I know it's just not me. I luckily have my wife who doesn't let them tell her no. So she got back after them and stuff to get things done, and we have gotten things done. But it takes persistence, and don't give up, and get after them. And the more of us that contact our senators and stuff, write your senator. Don't give up. And when you're in pain, you don't feel like writing. You don't feel like. Luckily, I have my wife who can do those things for me. But you got to find somebody that will help look out for you.
I think something that might help people? Because a lot of veterans don't like asking for help unless it's
I know that.
dire.
I know.
I wonder if it'd almost be better to frame it as, if you're in this amount of pain, imagine what, the next guy down the line feels like. So
Correct.
even if you don't feel like writing for you, write for
Correct.
that guy.
That's why I'm doing this. It's not for myself. I've gotten the help that I need. Luckily. Otherwise, I'd have been gone by now. But I did find the help that I needed. Thanks to my wife and thanks to God, I found the help that I needed. But I also know what it was like in December where I felt alone. I had my wife there holding my hand, but that was it. Otherwise, I felt like everybody had just forgotten me. But I want to tell you, you're not forgotten. I'm doing this to bring awareness to the world that there are people, there are veterans who are not able to speak for themselves. And we're out there. And I know I've been in contact with a couple of veterans who are in similar circumstances. And a lot of times they're just not aware that, I wasn't aware that there are organizations like this that are available to help you. It's only till I got things really desperate that I started looking. But it shouldn't have to be that we get to the point where we're going to die that we get the help that we need. And that's what I'm saying. If I had got the help that I needed last year, earlier, I wouldn't have been at this point. I wouldn't have been so bad in November and December. It was terrible. Laying here all day long. So, just don't give up. I felt like giving up, and I'm glad I didn't. Because now I'm hoping to at least do some things. No, I can't do like I did before, but I'm gonna make it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be an advocate for other bedridden veterans. And I appreciate you offering me that opportunity to bring awareness that when you look at Veterans Day, remember the veterans at the VA hospital who can't get out, or the veterans who are homebound, bedridden, who can't make it out of their house. We need to be able to recognize them and know that they're there, don't we? But it got to be a habit, a bad habit, because I was drinking like 3 or 4 a day. And so I came home and my wife said, "No, we got to stop doing that. You're too wiry." So I got it down to 1 a day, and it's hard for me to give up that. But that's where the monster came about.